The massive screen at the United Nations Defense Force headquarters lit up with an otherworldly glow. Nobody in the room dared to breathe. After centuries of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, they finally had their answer. The aliens had arrived. Captain Tom Miller stood at attention, his weathered face illuminated by the screen's purple light. 20 years in the military hadn't prepared him for this moment. The alien ship hanging in orbit was larger than anything humans had ever built, its crystal-like surface reflecting sunlight in rainbow patterns. "This is High Command," a voice echoed through the speakers. It wasn't human. The words came out in perfect English, but with a strange musical quality that made everyone's skin tingle. "Your planet has been selected for integration into the Stellar Confederation." General Roberts, standing beside Tom, gripped the edge of the command table. "We're honored by your contact," he responded, following the carefully prepared first contact protocols. "Earth welcomes peaceful dialogue with your civilization." A sound like tinkling glass filled the room. Perhaps alien laughter. "Dialogue? Your species barely understands basic space travel. We detected your primitive nuclear weapons and fossil fuel usage. Integration is not a request. It is inevitable." Tom watched as the room's atmosphere shifted from wonder to tension. The alien ship's scans had somehow pierced through all of Earth's defenses like they weren't even there. Humanity's most advanced technology must have seemed like stone tools to them. With respect, Tom spoke up, surprising even himself. "Earth is a sovereign planet. We'd prefer to establish diplomatic relations as equals." He ignored the warning look from General Roberts. Sometimes the direct approach was best. The alien response was immediate. The massive screen filled with the image of a crystalline being, its transparent body housing swirling colors like an aurora. "Captain Miller," it said, somehow knowing his name, "your primitive understanding amuses us. Let me demonstrate the gap between our civilizations." A beam of light shot from the alien ship, hitting a small island in the Pacific. The entire island vanished, leaving nothing but a perfect circle of empty ocean. No explosion, no debris. It was simply gone, as if it had never existed. "That was uninhabited," the alien said. "A courtesy. You have 24 Earth hours to surrender control of your planet to the Stellar Confederation. Resistance would be unfortunate." The screen went dark. The room erupted into chaos, but Tom's military training kicked in. He noticed things others missed in their panic. The alien's tone when saying primitive, it wasn't just dismissive, it was disgusted. Their demonstration wasn't just a show of power, it was careful, precise, almost fearful of contamination. "They think we're dirty," Tom said suddenly, making heads turn. "They're not just technologically advanced, they think they're better than us. Cleaner, more evolved." General Roberts frowned. "And how does that help us against a weapon that can erase islands?" "Every strength can be a weakness," Tom replied, remembering his basic training. "They're so advanced, so sure of their superiority. What if that's their weak point?" The next few hours were a blur of activity. Earth's military forces went on high alert, but they all knew their most powerful weapons would be useless against an enemy that could delete islands. More alien ships appeared in orbit, each one a massive crystalline structure that seemed to mock humanity's simple metal vessels. Tom found himself in the heart of the UN Defense Forces Emergency Command Center, watching as world leaders argued over video conferences. Some wanted to surrender, to submit to integration, and hope for mercy. Others demanded they fight, even if it meant certain destruction. But Tom couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something. The aliens' disgust for anything primitive, their careful precision, their crystalline bodies that looked too perfect, too clean. There had to be a way to use that against them. He just hoped they'd figure it out before the 24 hours were up. The underground facility in Colorado buzzed with activity as the world's top military and scientific minds gathered to face humanity's greatest threat. 18 hours remained until the aliens' deadline, and they were no closer to finding a solution. The Stellar Confederation ships now numbered in the hundreds, their crystalline forms creating strange patterns in the night sky that terrified civilians worldwide. Dr. Emma White stared at the holographic display showing an alien drone they'd managed to capture. The small crystal device had crashed after flying too close to a radio telescope in New Mexico. Unlike the ships in orbit, this piece of alien technology was something they could actually study. "The energy readings make no sense," she muttered, adjusting her glasses. The other scientists in the room had given up hours ago, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something obvious. The drone's outer shell seemed to ripple with the same kind of shield technology the larger ships used. Tom Miller walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Emma, who accepted it gratefully. "Any progress?" he asked, though his tired eyes suggested he expected another dead end. "Their shield technology is like nothing we've ever seen," Emma said, taking a sip. "It's not just advanced. It's perfect. Too perfect." She pointed at the drone. "Watch this." Emma pressed a button, and a small laser fired at the drone. The beam hit an invisible barrier and dissipated harmlessly. She tried again with different weapons: plasma, electricity, even a miniature railgun. Nothing got through. "We've tried everything in our arsenal," Tom said, shaking his head. "Their shields stop all of it." Emma frowned. "Not everything." She reached into her lab coat pocket and pulled out a rubber band. Tom watched in confusion as she aimed it at the drone. "Dr. White, I don't think this is the time for..." The rubber band snapped forward. To everyone's shock, it passed straight through the shield and bounced off the drone's crystal surface with a clear ping. The room fell silent. "That's impossible," one of the other scientists said. "Try it again." Emma did. Again, the rubber band passed through the shield like it wasn't even there. Soon the entire room was throwing things at the drone: paper clips, pencils, rubber balls. Everything below a certain velocity went straight through the supposedly impenetrable shield. "They're shields," Emma said, excitement creeping into her voice. "They're designed to stop high-energy weapons, lasers, plasma, kinetic weapons, anything an advanced civilization would use. But simple, slow-moving objects, they don't even register as threats." Tom's eyes widened as he understood. They're so advanced, they forgot about the basics. Like building a high-tech security system, but leaving the back door unlocked. The next few hours were a whirlwind. Emma's team conducted test after test, confirming their theory. The alien shield technology was calibrated only for what they considered proper weapons. Their entire defense system had a massive blind spot. It simply ignored anything too primitive to register as a threat. Word spread quickly through the facility. Some military leaders laughed at the idea of fighting an advanced alien race with what amounted to toys. Others saw the potential. If the same principle applied to their ships, "We need to test this on a larger scale," Emma said, already drafting plans. "And we need to start manufacturing immediately. Every rubber band, slingshot, and spring in the country. Anything that can launch a projectile slowly enough to slip through their shields." Tom watched as the facility transformed from a mood of despair to cautious hope. 6 hours remained until the deadline, and humanity had found its first real advantage. It wasn't much, but it was something no one would expect. Especially not an alien race so convinced of their own superiority. "The dumbest weapon," he said with a growing smile, "might just be our best chance." Emma stood before the Joint Chiefs of Staff, trying not to think about the fact that humanity's survival might depend on her next few words. The room was tense, with military leaders from around the world watching both in person and through secure video feeds. They had less than 4 hours until the aliens' deadline. "You want us to fight an advanced alien civilization," General Roberts said slowly, "with rubber bands and slingshots." His voice carried the weight of someone who couldn't decide if this was brilliant or absolutely insane. "Not just rubber bands," Emma replied, clicking to the next slide. "We've identified dozens of simple projectile weapons that can penetrate their shields. slingshots, spring-powered launchers, even modified T-shirt cannons. Anything that moves below their shield's detection threshold. Admiral Peters leaned forward, his bushy eyebrows furrowed. And you're certain about this? Because if we commit our resources to this plan, and you're wrong. Tom stepped forward. We've tested it extensively on their drone. But more importantly, we managed to test it on one of their scout ships. He played a video showing a small group of soldiers using modified paintball guns against a crystal-like alien vessel. The paint sailed straight through the shields, splattering across the ship's surface. The vessel immediately retreated, its perfect appearance marred by bright blue spots. They're not just vulnerable to these weapons, Emma continued. They're completely unprepared for them. Their entire civilization has evolved past physical projectiles. They don't even have point defense systems for slow-moving objects because they never imagined they'd need them. The room burst into discussion. Some military leaders argued it was too risky, that they should try to negotiate. Others saw the potential but worried about implementation. How could they produce enough weapons? How would they coordinate an attack? We don't have time for debate, Tom said, his voice cutting through the chaos. The aliens gave us 24 hours because they're confident. They think we'll either surrender or try to fight them with our advanced weapons. This plan may seem ridiculous, but that's exactly why it might work. Emma pulled up another diagram. We've already contacted major toy manufacturers, sporting goods companies, and physics labs. They're retooling their production lines as we speak. We can have millions of simple projectile launchers ready within hours. The next presentation slide showed modified designs, water balloons filled with paint, foam balls weighted with non-toxic metal particles, spring-loaded launchers that could be mass-produced from common materials. Each one looked almost comically simple compared to humanity's advanced military hardware. The best part, Emma said, allowing herself a small smile, is that they can't adapt quickly. Their shields are integrated into their entire technology base. They can't just recalibrate them without rebuilding their whole defensive system from scratch. General Roberts stood up, looking at the countdown timer on the wall. 3 hours and 20 minutes remained. And what about their offensive capabilities? They can still wipe our cities off the map. They have to see us to hit us, Tom replied. Those perfect crystal ships of theirs, once we cover them in paint, mud, and foam, their sensors will be practically useless. They're so focused on energy weapons and high-tech solutions, they'd never had to deal with something as simple as blocked windows. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's most advanced weapons were useless, but their simplest toys might save them. It was either brilliant or the most desperate plan in human history. General Roberts looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each military leader present. One by one, they nodded. Dr. White, he said finally, you have authorization to proceed. God help us all if this doesn't work. Emma and Tom shared a look. The plan was crazy, but it was their only chance. Now they just had to convince humanity's military forces to fight an alien invasion with what amounted to toys and party supplies. Well, Tom said quietly as they left the room, at least it'll be a memorable last stand if we're wrong. High General Vale stood in the command center of the flagship, his crystalline form pulsing with waves of deep purple, a sign of growing irritation. The humans had not surrendered, and stranger still, their factories had suddenly switched to producing toys. The general's analytical mind couldn't make sense of it. Explain these readings again, he commanded. A junior officer's form flickered with nervous green patterns as he brought up the holographic display. The humans have converted nearly all their manufacturing facilities to produce simple projectile launchers, elastic bands, and spherical objects. They appear to be distributing them to their military forces, the officer reported. Vale's form rippled with what passed for laughter in his species. They've lost their minds in fear. No matter. Begin the invasion sequence. Down on Earth, humanity was mobilizing in a way never seen before. Toy factories worked overtime. producing millions of modified paintball guns, slingshots, and spring-loaded launchers. Physics laboratories converted their equipment to produce specially weighted foam balls and rubber projectiles. Even children's party supply companies joined the effort, their bubble machines repurposed to spray clouds of sensor-blocking solution. Tom watched from the command center as the alien ships began their descent. They moved with perfect geometric precision, their crystalline forms catching the sunlight like massive diamonds. Emma stood beside him, clutching a tablet showing the status of their worldwide defense network. "All units report ready," she said, her voice steady despite the stakes. "Everyone's in position with their equipment." She almost smiled at the last word. It was hard to call their weapons arsenal with a straight face. The first alien ship broke through the cloud layer above New York. Its massive form cast rainbow patterns across the buildings below. Similar scenes played out above major cities worldwide. The humans waited, fingers tensed on their triggers, as the ships moved into position. High General Vale's voice boomed across the planet's communication systems. "Your time has expired. You have chosen resistance. Now witness the price of your primitive defiance." That was the signal. Tom grabbed his radio. "All units, commence Operation Rubber Band." What followed would be remembered as one of the most bizarre battles in human history. From rooftops, windows, and streets, millions of people opened fire with toys. Streams of paintballs arced through the air, passing straight through the supposedly impenetrable alien shields. Massive slingshots, hastily constructed by engineering students, launched volleys of foam balls. Modified T-shirt cannons fired specially designed packets of chalk dust. The alien ship's perfect crystalline surfaces quickly became a mess of colors, foam, and powder. Their sensors, designed to detect energy weapons and advanced technology, were completely overwhelmed by the simple barrage of physical objects. "Impossible." Vale's voice crackled over the communication system. "Our shields are the pinnacle of defensive technology. How are they bypassing them with children's toys?" The aliens tried to retaliate, but their weapons required clear lines of sight and precise targeting. With their ships covered in paint and their sensors blocked by clouds of chalk dust, they were firing blindly. Their energy beams, capable of erasing islands, hit nothing but empty air. Emma watched the tactical display as more and more alien ships began to retreat upward, their perfect formations breaking apart as they tried to escape the barrage. Some ships collided with each other, their navigation systems confused by the coating of colorful substances covering their sensors. "It's working," she whispered, then louder, "It's actually working." Tom allowed himself a small grin. Turns out the most advanced civilization in the galaxy never considered they might need windshield wipers. The battle continued as the sun set, the night sky filled with the strange sight of crystal ships retreating from clouds of soap bubbles and streams of rubber balls. Humanity's primitive weapons had done what their most advanced technology couldn't. They had found the one blind spot in an otherwise perfect defense. Vale's last transmission was filled with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "This is impossible. We are the Stellar Confederation. We cannot be defeated by toys." The morning after the battle, Earth's skies were filled with a bizarre sight. Hundreds of alien ships hung in orbit, their once pristine crystalline surfaces now covered in a rainbow of paint, foam, and chalk. Some slowly rotated, their navigation systems still confused by the coating of primitive materials blocking their sensors. In the Colorado Command Center, Emma couldn't stop staring at the surveillance feeds. "They're just sitting there," she said, watching as another alien ship tried unsuccessfully to clean its sensors using energy beams, only to spread the paint around even more. Tom entered the room, looking tired but satisfied. "Latest reports are in. We've got confirmed hits on 80% of their fleet. Their ground forces won't even leave their ships. Apparently, they're terrified of getting dirt on their crystalline forms." The main screen flickered to life, showing High General Vale's command ship. The alien leader's perfect crystal form now had streaks of neon, pink, and yellow paint disrupting its usual color patterns. His voice came through with barely contained fury. This is barbaric. Vale's form pulsed with angry red waves. You attack us with liquids, with powders, with primitive projectiles that stick to our surfaces. This violates all principles of civilized warfare. General Roberts stepped forward to respond, somehow managing to keep a straight face. Our weapons proved effective within the established rules of engagement. You never specified that combat had to involve advanced technology. The alien leader's form shimmered with what might have been a shudder. Do you realize what you've done? Some of these substances are seeping into our ship's crystal matrix. We can't even enter light speed without risking structural damage from your primitive contaminants. Behind Vale, other crystalline beings could be seen frantically trying to clean their ship's surfaces using energy beams, but the human materials had been specifically designed to resist such treatment. The more they tried to burn away the paint and foam, the more it seemed to spread and stick. Emma leaned over to Tom and whispered, "Remember when I said we should add that permanent bonding agent to the paint? I think that was a good call." The situation in orbit was becoming increasingly chaotic. Some alien ships, their sensors completely blocked, were bumping into each other like blind giants. Others were trying to use their energy weapons to blast away the coating of human materials, but their shots went wild, missing their targets and creating spectacular light shows in the upper atmosphere. "This is your final chance," Vale announced, though his voice carried less authority now that his image was partially obscured by a large splash of glitter-infused paint. "Remove these substances from our ships, or face the consequences." Tom stepped forward. "We'd be happy to help clean your ships," he said diplomatically. "But first, let's discuss terms. As equals." Vale's form rippled with conflicting colors. The mighty Stellar Confederation, with its perfect technology and advanced weapons, had been brought to a standstill by what amounted to party supplies and children's toys. Worse, they had no defense against these primitive weapons. Their entire civilization had evolved so far past physical combat that they had no way to counter it. "The Council will hear of this," Vale said finally, his form dimming in what might have been resignation. "Never in our history has any species dared to use such primitive methods." Emma couldn't help herself. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways," she said, watching as another alien ship tried unsuccessfully to dodge a barrage of soap bubbles launched from a modified lawn sprinkler. The humans in the command center maintained their professional composure, but there was no hiding the sense of victory in the air. They had found the one weakness in the aliens' perfect defense. Their own technological superiority had become their greatest vulnerability. Sometimes, as Earth was proving, the dumbest weapon could indeed be the most effective one. 3 days after the Battle of Earth, the Stellar Confederation's Grand Council assembled for an emergency session. The massive crystal chamber, usually a model of perfect order, was in chaos. The councilors' forms flickered with agitation as they watched recordings of their mighty fleet being defeated by toys and party supplies. On Earth, Tom and Emma stood before a different kind of council. The United Nations Security Council had gathered to hear their report on the alien situation. The room was packed with world leaders, many still struggling to believe what had happened. The Confederation's entire defensive doctrine is based on energy weapons and advanced technology, Emma explained, showing slides of paint-covered alien ships. They've spent so many centuries advancing their technology that they've literally forgotten about physical combat. It's like they developed an immune system against superbugs but forgot about the common cold. In orbit, the alien fleet remained in disarray. Their attempts to clean their ships had only made things worse. The specially designed paint had bonded with their crystalline surfaces at a molecular level. Some ships now sported tie-dye patterns that would have looked more at home at a music festival than on an advanced alien vessel. "We've received word from their Grand Council," Tom announced, reading from a tablet. He paused, double-checking the message. "They're demanding we teach them about physical combat." The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Emma pulled up another slide showing the aliens' message. The mighty Stellar Confederation, masters of energy weapons and perfect shields, wanted lessons in how to use slingshots and water balloons. Meanwhile, in the crystal chamber of the Grand Council, High General Vale was facing tough questions. His form had finally been cleaned of most of the paint, though a stubborn patch of glitter still caught the light whenever he moved. How did we not see this weakness? One counselor demanded, their form pulsing with angry red waves. Our entire defense system is vulnerable to children's toys. Vale's response was interrupted by an alert. On Earth, several alien scouts had finally worked up the courage to land. They emerged from their ships wearing what looked like transparent hazmat suits, clearly terrified of getting any primitive substances on their crystalline forms. Tom and Emma were chosen to meet them. The aliens moved with exaggerated care, scanning every surface for signs of paint or powder. Their translucent forms shimmered with nervous patterns as they approached the humans. Our council has reached a decision, the lead alien announced, its musical voice carrying a note of resignation. The Stellar Confederation recognizes that we may have become too specialized in our military development. Emma tried not to smile as she watched an alien scientist cautiously examine a rubber band, holding it like it might explode. Another was studying a paintball gun with a mixture of fear and fascination, its form flickering between curious blue and anxious green. We propose an exchange, the alien continued. Your primitive, your physical combat knowledge for our advanced technology. We must adapt. The last word seemed to cause the alien physical pain. Tom managed to maintain his diplomatic composure, though his eyes twinkled with amusement. We would be honored to share our expertise in alternative combat methods. Back in orbit, some of the alien ships had started experimenting with their own versions of physical weapons. The results were both impressive and hilarious. One ship had created an energy-based water gun that shot perfectly spherical drops of liquid at near light speed, completely missing the point of why Earth's simple weapons had worked. Should we tell them that's not quite what we meant by physical combat? Emma whispered to Tom as they watched the aliens' attempts. Let them figure it out, Tom replied with a small smile. Sometimes the best lessons are learned through experience. The Stellar Confederation was learning a hard lesson about the dangers of over-specialization, while humanity was teaching an advanced alien civilization how to fight with toys. It was perhaps the strangest cultural exchange in Earth's history. 1 year after the infamous Toy War, Earth had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. The planet had become the galaxy's most unlikely military training center, with alien species from across the Stellar Confederation coming to learn about what they called primitive combat techniques. Emma walked through the New Earth Defense Academy, watching as crystalline aliens attempted to master the art of dodgeball. The sight of advanced beings struggling with rubber balls never got old. In one corner, a group of aliens was learning about water balloon trajectories, their transparent forms flickering with concentration as they calculated optimal throwing angles. They're getting better, Tom said, joining her on the observation deck. Yesterday's class actually managed to hit their targets without using quantum calculations first. The Academy had become Earth's most important contribution to galactic society. Humanity's primitive approach to combat had exposed a critical vulnerability in advanced civilizations. They had evolved past physical warfare to the point where they couldn't defend against it. In orbit, the Stellar Confederation's fleet looked very different now. Their crystal ships still carried advanced energy weapons, but they had also been modified with what the aliens called retrograde defense systems, essentially windshield wipers and point defense systems capable of stopping physical projectiles. The Council sent another message, Tom said, showing Emma his tablet. They're officially changing their combat doctrine. All ships are now required to maintain both advanced and primitive combat capabilities. He smiled. They're still having trouble saying the word primitive without shuddering. In the training yard below, a new group of alien recruits was arriving. They moved with the typical nervousness of beings who had never handled physical objects in combat before. Their crystalline forms sparkled with anxiety as instructors handed out what they considered the most terrifying weapons in the galaxy, super soakers. "Remember when they first asked us to teach them?" Emma asked, watching as an alien accidentally sprayed itself with water and nearly had a panic attack. They thought we were keeping some advanced secret. They couldn't believe we actually fought with toys. The humans had gained more than just respect from the incident. The Stellar Confederation, realizing they needed Earth's expertise, had offered an exchange of technology. Now, human scientists were learning about advanced energy weapons, while alien engineers studied the complex physics of rubber band trajectories. "Latest report from the Joint Research Team," Tom said, reading from his tablet. "They've successfully combined our physical combat techniques with their energy weapons. They're calling it hybrid warfare." He paused, chuckling. "Though I'm not sure a quantum-enhanced slingshot really counts as primitive anymore." Down in the lab sections, human and alien scientists worked together, creating new technologies that combined both approaches. Some of the results were spectacular failures, like the attempt to create a light-speed water balloon that had flooded an entire test chamber. Others were surprisingly effective, leading to entirely new forms of defense systems. "You know what the funny thing is?" Emma said, watching as an alien instructor demonstrated proper snowball-making technique to a bewildered class. "They're actually enjoying it now. Look at them. They're having fun." She was right. The aliens, who had once considered physical combat beneath them, were discovering the simple joy of throwing things. Their forms would pulse with excitement when they hit their targets, and some had even started inventing their own games combining physical objects with their natural energy manipulation abilities. The Council's final report called it a renaissance in combat philosophy, Tom quoted. "Though I think they're just trying to save face after being defeated by party supplies." As they watched the training below, a small alien child, part of a cultural exchange program, ran past them, chasing a floating crystal ball with a plastic bat. Its form flickered with pure joy, all pretense of advanced civilization forgotten in the simple pleasure of play. "Maybe that's the real lesson," Emma said softly. "Sometimes the best solutions are the simple ones, and sometimes the dumbest weapon is the smartest choice." The galaxy had learned an important lesson from Earth, that progress doesn't always mean abandoning the basics, and somewhere in the vast expanse of space, countless alien civilizations were rediscovering the value of keeping things simple, one rubber band at a time.